what we told the Iranians yesterday is when you guys engage in what us millennials might call trash talk, you can't expect the President of the United States not to respond and not to correct the record. So when they say things that aren't true, the President is going to respond to it. I'm going to respond to it. Americans are going to respond to it. When they make threats that aren't rooted in reality, they have to accept that the President of the United States is actually going to set the record straight. That's all that happened. So yes, there was a little bit of threatening, there was a little bit of whining, but at the end of the day, the talks continued and we made great progress.
J.D. Vance in Switzerland, the Vice President of the United States, saying, hey, if you're going to trash talk Donald Trump, he's going to trash talk you right back. We got bigger bombs. It kind of feels like what he's saying there. I do find it interesting that he reflects on the idea of the words trash talk as a millennial phrase. I had not known that that belonged to our generation.
Quote unquote trash talking.
As the old people say. Let's get to Fred Fleitz, Vice Chair, America First Policy Institute Center for American Security, former NSC Chief of Staff, CIA analyst, and House of Intelligence Committee staff member. Also, author of the book, An America First Approach to U.S. National Security. Fred, thank you for being with us here today. It's a pleasure to have you back with us.
Hey, Annie, good to be here.
Thank you so much. I want to, before I get into the details of questions that I have based on some of the clips we've played today, some of what we've heard from J.D. Vance and Trey Yingst and all those folks. What are your thoughts on where we are on this timeline with Iran, now in Switzerland, the Memorandum of Understanding? That was the whole topic du jour last week. We finally get it. And then it seemed like it wasn't going to stick over the weekend, but now we're in Switzerland having talks. Where do you feel we are right now in this moment?
Well, the MOU is controversial for obvious reasons. It's not a perfect plan, but it's a necessary plan for the president to fulfill his promise that this wouldn't be an endless war or a quagmire. He's accomplished his objectives of destroying Iran's nuclear program, greatly undermining its military, and he has to get out. But look, negotiating with the Iranian government is difficult. The government's broken. It's dishonest. It keeps backtracking on what it wants to agree to. And then we have these demands that it's all Israel's fault. There's not a deal because it keeps attacking Lebanon. Well, why was Israel attacking Lebanon? Because Hezbollah, the Iranian terrorist proxy in Lebanon, was attacking Israel. So Trump over the weekend said that if Iran doesn't rein in its Hezbollah proxy, the war will resume. And guess what? There's been a freeze in military attacks by each side over the last 24 hours. That allowed this agreement to move forward. So I'm cautiously optimistic. I don't know whether the Iranian government will honor this, but I think J.D. Vance made some real progress over the last 24 hours.
Fred Fleitz speaking with us right now with the America First Policy Institute. So I have a couple questions lined up here. One was one I was going to ask, and one of our listeners sent it in as well, Dirk, and he said, who are we talking to with Iran? Like, how do we even know? Has Iran decided, okay, we collectively agree that these are going to be the people in charge to help make the next decisions?
Well, the president of the Iranian parliament and the Iranian foreign minister are in Switzerland. They're engaged in the negotiations. We have been hearing claims by the Iranian government that there are various edicts and statements by the Iranian supreme leader, who no one has seen since he succeeded his father. Does he actually exist? Is he dead? Is he a figurehead? No one knows. Maybe he's hiding in a hole somewhere because he's worried that we will blow up, which could actually happen. But it's a real question, who is running the country? And even if any of these officials are running the country, the Revolutionary Guard seems to have a veto on whatever they decide. So it's really a broken regime.
So, okay, so here's something I read about the Memorandum of Understanding, and it was kind of, suggested there's a lot of room for that MOU to be interpreted one way or another, a lot of room for Iran to get things that people who are reading it and criticizing it here in America weren't happy about. There was a suggestion that maybe the amount of time that is provided right now for Iran to get their act together, that there is dissent within Iran on who's calling the shots. And if that's left to fester within Iran, that some of that might end up taking care of itself without the United States having to come in to, try to pick and choose who the next people are that they're going to be talking to, that there has been enough confusion in Iran as to who's calling the shots, that the intra-fighting taking place in that country, that they need to sort some of that stuff out before we could even potentially actually negotiate some sort of deal. Do you feel like that is happening or has been happening in Iran? And if it has been, are we getting towards the end of it where maybe they've made that decision?
I think there's dissension and disagreement within the Iranian government. I think there's been a lot of infighting. For now, we have to negotiate with who seems to be in control. I think regime change is coming to this country one day. The Iranian people will never forget what their leadership did when they executed at least 40,000 innocent civilians protesting for freedom early this year. And they know why the internet was cut off, because the Iranian government didn't want them to know that their incompetent military and the billions that they waste on nuclear weapons had brought on this incredible series of attacks by the U.S. and Israel. So there's open questions who we're negotiating with, and whether whatever these leaders agree to will be honored.
We're speaking with Fred Fleitz here on the Annie Frey Show. So we have had Vice President J.D. Vance there to negotiate. My understanding is that Secretary of State Marco Rubio is headed out there as well. Does that signal anything in your mind that now Rubio is joining this group? Does it mean it's getting closer, or it needs salvaging, or what does that mean to you?
I think I heard that Rubio is going to the Middle East. I don't know if he's going to Switzerland for these talks. And I don't know that these talks are finished. There weren't any today. It could be that Rubio and Vance will go to the Middle East, maybe to meet with officials in Qatar or the UAE. But I'm glad to see Rubio is joining Vance. He's such a capable diplomat. I think they make a good team.
Yeah, you're correct. He's headed to the Middle East to address the Iran MOU and the Strait of Hormuz. That's according to Al Jazeera. But so let me ask you this question. We're speaking with Fred Fleitz, Vice Chair for the America First Policy Institute Center for American Security. It seems to me J.D. Vance has always been kind of a let's not get into new wars type of person. He seems to have been, which is interesting. I respect his position on it because he has served. He's a Marine, I believe. Isn't he a Marine? Is that right?
Yes. Yes.
So he understands what is asked of these men and women when they are sent by their commander-in-chief to take on a mission. Marco Rubio is incredibly diplomatic. He's incredibly strong. He knows wherever he is, he knows everything he needs to know about the foundational facts of that situation and circumstance. What kind of presentation is America on the world stage providing when they send J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio, as well as maybe the Kushner and the Witkoff in to organize and negotiate these deals?
Well, I think we're projecting President Trump's America First approach to U.S. national security to address these dire threats to our freedom and security, but also to keep us out of unending wars. That this is going to be a short-term commitment, and now that we've accomplished our objectives, we're going to find a way out of it. But that doesn't mean we're simply going to walk away and give Iran everything at once or appease Iran. It's a difficult process to get this through, and I think we have capable leaders who are trying to negotiate a final settlement.
Is it normal in a situation like this? I don't know if anything about the situation is normal, but in a situation where you're trying to negotiate this kind of peace and you've got the likes of Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff at the helm there to help try to get these negotiations, Abraham Accords were very successful, and in the involvement there was with Kushner specifically was very successful. Is it normal to have individuals like them in the position they're in when they're not elected officials or somebody who's in the cabinet who's been approved by the Senate, that type of thing?
Well, normal. That's an interesting word.
Appropriate. How about that?
Does not play by the book. Typically, negotiations like this would be done for months by career diplomats, representatives of the deep state, many of whom simply won't cooperate with President Trump when Trump doesn't trust them. Trump turned to his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, in the first term to negotiate the Abraham Accords because he trusts him. And I work with Jared Kushner, and I was very impressed by the wheeling and dealing he did on cell phones with foreign leaders. And he helped negotiate an agreement, not by himself, but he worked with other officials to get an incredibly good agreement through. And I'm glad that he's there. Steve Witkoff is someone who the president trusts implicitly. It's a different way of operating. Each president can run their foreign policy the way they want to. And as I said, is it normal? Well, no, it's not normal. This is Trumpian foreign policy, and he makes up his own rules.
Appropriate, inappropriate, anything wrong with choosing those individuals who the president trusts to participate in this way?
I mean, the president gets to choose his own team. He gets to run foreign policy the way that he wants. He ran things a certain way in the first term. Remember, he let go national security advisors and a Secretary of State and a Secretary of Defense because they weren't carrying out his policies. This administration is much more stable. There's people there who are capable and reflect what the president wants them to do. I mean, I think the president has had enough of senior officials who come in with their own agenda, determined not to do what the president tells them to do. President Trump won the election, not these various officials who hold senior positions.
I would like to ask you one last question on a bit of a different topic, but given your background as a former NSC Chief of Staff, CIA analyst, and House of Intelligence Committee staff member, the FISA standstill right now, the negotiations to get it passed once again, could you just give us a real brief precursor as to what's at stake right now and your position on what needs to be done next?
Well, the FISA law provides important information gleaned from intercepted communications. And, I mean, there are concerns that this data could be used to collect information against American citizens who may be in communication with foreigners abroad. But, I mean, I've used this material as an intelligence officer. It's very important. But there's a holdup right now because the Democrats objected to Bill Pulte as the acting DNI, and then the president nominated someone else, and they're still objecting and won't agree to let the FISA provisions go through. I think that's unfortunate because we've stopped a lot of terrorist attacks using FISA information, but there's also opposition to FISA because it has been abused. I think there have to be safeguards to make sure it is not used to spy on the American people, that it's not used to spy on presidential campaigns, and it has been used to spy on President Trump. So he's found a way through this where he can support this and also protect the privacy rights of Americans, but the Democrats would rather play political games.
Well, we will watch and see what happens there. Of course, in Iran and Fred Fleitz, we thank you for your time. We hope you'll come back with us as these stories progress. It's great to have you with us.
Good to be here.
Take care. Bye-bye. Vice Chair of the America First Policy Institute Center for American Security, and as I mentioned, quite a few accolades in on his resume, former NSC Chief of Staff, CIA analyst, and House of Intelligence Committee staff member. His book, which you can read if you want to learn more from the deep well of information that he is able to provide due to his background, An American First Approach to U.S. National Security. Fred Fleitz.